Plenty has been said about the problems with the Disney Star Wars trilogy. All three movies in the trilogy are terrible, but this video isn't an attempt to explain why the movies are bad. There are hundreds of good videos on YouTube explaining what's wrong with the movies and why Disney Lucasfilm made so many mistakes and bad decisions when making the sequel trilogy. By now, several years after The Rise of Skywalker, I consider it a widely accepted fact that the Disney sequel was a total failure. In this video, I want to step back from emotion, criticism, and anger and just explain in objective terms why they should and must be retconned, and why I think they eventually will be. Quick note, for the purposes of brevity, I will be referring to the Disney sequel trilogy as the DST. The first reason is the most obvious. The trilogy is awful. These movies suck. They aren't fun to watch, and very few people are still watching them. Going by Rotten Tomatoes audience score, not critic score, as has been recently demonstrated with the disgraceful critic score for The Woman King, a high critic score is essentially just a political endorsement at this point. Going by audience score, not one of the DST movies makes it into the top 100 highest rated movies on Disney+. No one would miss these movies if they were Thanos out of existence, and I'm not suggesting that, just that they be given their rightful place as crappy, dated sci-fi movies of some cultural interest. Let them exist as what they are, a very bad attempt at a Star Wars sequel trilogy that was ultimately rejected, first by the fans and then, inevitably, by their own parent company when they realized that these movies were a commercial dead end. Now, I know what the obvious objection is. You can't retcon them because they contain the original cast, which gives the movies a stamp of official authenticity. To that, I would respond,
come on, Mala, let's see a little smile. Come on. There, that's better. Try to enjoy your life day.
No matter how different we appear, we're all the same in our struggle against the powers of evil and darkness. We celebrate a day of peace.
Quick bit of trivia here. Carrie Fisher was stoned out of her mind the whole time when they were filming that movie, and Harrison Ford would later deny that it exists. Retconning in major franchises is common now. Two recent examples are Ghostbusters, which in Ghostbusters Afterlife proceeded as if Ghostbusters 2016 never happened.
The power of pain compels you!
I wonder why. And Terminator, a now mercifully dead franchise whose final cash-in was based on the premise that all the movies that occurred after Terminator 2 never happened. Reason number two, the DST has no cultural impact or legacy. Cultural impact refers to references and influence in other cultural works, usually TV and movies.
That's damn fine coffee you got here in Twin Peaks, and damn good cherry pie.
Brilliant.
But also literature and music, like the Star Wars Expanded Universe novels, many of which are great, especially the Thrawn novels, or with music, Stranger Things catapulting Running Up That Hill to #1 globally. A nice change from Thank You, Kate. A movie's cultural impact also manifests in fan communities, YouTube channels, cosplay, Halloween costumes, anniversary screenings, advertising, memes, jokes, humor, and even language. The Disney trilogy has had no impact on the culture at all in any of those areas. There are no fan communities. Go to a cosplay event and you won't see a single costume taken from the sequel trilogy, though you'll see plenty from the OT. It's never referenced in movies or TV, and its only influence on cinema is that it is often held up as an example of what not to do. There's even a university professor who uses The Last Jedi as a textbook example of bad script writing. The only genuine cultural impact these movies have had is that they are undoubtedly the most hated movies in history and have spawned hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTube videos tearing the movies to shreds and thus helping the growth of post-normie film criticism. Reason number three, the Disney sequel trilogy is worthless as an IP. In an age of nostalgia and rehash-driven cinema, old, much-loved IPs are the golden geese, and big corporations like Disney love to acquire them. While Star Wars is still one of the most valuable IPs in the world in terms of raw potential, that value rests on the original three movies, and to a lesser but still significant extent, the prequel trilogy. The Disney trilogy has added nothing at all to the value of the Star Wars IP. This is because they can't sell anything or generate any spin-off content. Beyond movie tickets sold during theater runs, these movies haven't made any money. They didn't sell toys, they didn't sell Blu-ray sets, they don't sell t-shirts, and they don't sell Disney Plus subscriptions. No one cares about any of the new characters. No one is going to tune in for the Mary Sue Skywalker spin-off series or the Kylo Ren TV series. No one is interested in Finn's debut album, and no one cares about their story, where they came from, or where they might end up. These characters are dry cows. They can't produce milk. The Disney trilogy is financially barren. No third party would ever pay to acquire the rights to these movies or characters because they're worthless. Put simply, no one gives a shit about these movies. If Disney does retcon them, they will be losing nothing in terms of financial potential. Reason number 4, the characters are not popular. This is related to the previous point, but it needs to be examined on its own for one very important reason: the next trilogy. When the time comes to make episodes 10, 11, and 12, will Disney really want any of the characters from episodes 7, 8, and 9 to be leading these new movies? This is a rhetorical question. The answer is no. Disney don't know Star Wars, but they know money. And they know that if they release episode 10 with no Han, Luke, or Leia, who are all now dead in Disney canon, but lots of Mary Sue Skywalker, some reincarnated form of Darth Vader Jr., and of course the always lovable diversity clown who is adept at following women around and doing nothing of any use, Finn, the movie would be a humiliating box office bomb. Kathleen Kennedy's plan was to make a trilogy that milked, then killed off the original characters and built up new characters that would take the franchise forward in the future. She failed utterly in this endeavor. Star Wars fans don't care about the new characters, and normie casuals have completely forgotten them. In their arrogance and greed, Disney killed the geese that laid the golden eggs and traded in the carcasses for some magic beans. But those beans didn't grow, and now episodes 10, 11, and 12 are fucked, unless Disney retcon episodes 7, 8, and 9. Reason 5, the DST doesn't have a fan base, but it does have a strong following of anti-fans. Movie fan opinions about the Disney trilogy fall into two camps. The first is Star Wars fans who absolutely despise these movies, and the second is normie cinemagoers whose opinion is something like, I can't really remember these movies, but I guess they were okay. When is the next Marvel movie coming out? Anyone who liked the DST movies at the time has moved on to next product, and Star Wars fans reject them utterly. This means that Disney wouldn't be able to build up any grassroots excitement about episode 10, while at the same time they would be fighting a defensive social media and meme war against the fandom, a war which they would lose, as happened with Amazon's Rings of Power marketing campaign. The release of The Force Awakens was built upon audience expectation, goodwill of the fans, fandom activity on social media, positive reaction videos on YouTube, and excitement about seeing characters from the previous movies on screen again. None of that would be available to Episode 10's marketing department. In fact, Disney would have to fight against the total opposite: the enmity of the fan base, ruthless attacks and trolling on social media, negative reaction videos to trailers, screenshots and announcements, and no interest in seeing the Disney characters on screen again. A very likely outcome of all of this would be a box office disaster that would force Disney to postpone episode 11 indefinitely and cause a significant drop in Disney's stock value. Reason number 6, no one would defend the DST against a retcon. When Sony tried to reboot Ghostbusters by retconning the originals and replacing the original cast with a more diverse female cast, they were massacred in an online backlash comparable with the great slaughters of history. This is because Ghostbusters is widely loved and cherished. Trying to retcon a much-loved cultural treasure, which many people have a strong emotional connection with, is stupid, and the result of this idiotic and politically motivated idea was a box office bomb and a public relations shitefest. Retconning is dangerous, but under the right conditions, it can and should be done. A great example of retconning done right is Battlestar Galactica. There is an original TV series from the 70s. The reboot took the basic premise of it, threw out the rest, and started from scratch on their own, and made one of the greatest TV series of all time. A more recent example of it done right was Ghostbusters Afterlife, which, for all its shortcomings as a movie, did have its heart in the right place and was at least an attempt to make a movie for the fans instead of for activists on Twitter who put their pronouns in their bio. Retconning can be compared to a demolition and redevelopment. If you're a property developer and want to build on the side of an existing building, you demolish that building and build a new one. If a developer shows up to a lovely, architecturally beautiful apartment building full of satisfied residents and announces their intention to demolish it and replace it with a large postmodern shrine to feminism, the residents will get angry. The people in the area and anyone who appreciates nice architecture will also get angry. And if the developer follows through on the threat, things won't go well for anyone. This is what happened with Ghostbusters 2016. It is currently happening with Amazon Rings of Power, and as mind-numbingly boring as that show is, watching Amazon perform absurd mental contortions to try to pretend that Rings of Power isn't the biggest disaster in TV history is just glorious. In the case of Disney retconning their own trilogy, it would be more like a developer showing up to a rundown, abandoned ruin of an ass-ugly building in the middle of nowhere that no one ever liked in the first place and tearing it the fuck down. No one would miss it and no one would object to its destruction. On the contrary, people would celebrate its demolition. A widely hated, hideous wreck is gone, and now something beautiful can be built in its place. A retcon of the Disney trilogy would be easy because there would be so little pushback. The fandom would get behind it as heralding a new, optimistic approach to Star Wars instead of the postmodern deconstructionist filth that was shoved in their face. That said, there would be two sources of defense of the Disney trilogy in the event of a retcon: the media and woke Twitter. If Disney announced that they were going to make episodes 7, 8, and 9 again, paying absolutely no attention to their previous attempt, anti-retcon opinion pieces would spring up all over the left-wing press from ideological-driven journalists who don't care about Star Wars and would just want to use the retcon announcement to push their own entirely political ideas about feminism, sexism, racism, and toxic fandoms. But everyone else would either be in support of the retcon or indifferent to it. There would be no genuine grassroots opposition to cancelling the DST. Reason number 7, the Disney trilogy retcons the OT. This was done out of a mixture of incompetence and malice. In The Last Jedi, the director wanted to deconstruct Star Wars characters in order to adhere to the political principles of millennial and Gen X movie establishment types, and to punish the fandom for liking movies and characters that the culturally dominant woke regime today consider to be patriarchal and sexist. This desire to retcon the original characters by deconstructing and then replacing them was most obvious with Luke. He was turned from a great hero that brought balance to the Force into a pathetic old man, wandering aimlessly around Craggy Island. Luke in The Last Jedi wasn't Luke. He was an entirely different character who held beliefs and behaved in a manner completely contrary to that of the original Luke Skywalker, who gave his all to acquire the skills and powers of a near-extinct warrior religion in order to fight against the evil that had enveloped the galaxy. In The Rise of Skywalker, the Emperor was brought back to life, and Anakin Skywalker's place as the one that brought balance to the Force was cancelled and handed over to Mary Sue Skywalker. This is to say nothing of the canon being broken by absurdly powerful levels of Force use and Admiral Gender Studies' lightspeed kamikaze attack. Tossing all this shite onto the scrap heap of bad ideas where it belongs would allow future Star Wars movies to be correctly aligned with canon and lore, and allow the original characters to just be themselves again, without having to satisfy the political desires of a cabal of woke mobsters from current year Hollywood. Reason number 8, the movies are taken out of the Star Wars universe by millennial movie tropes and contemporary politics. Characters whose main purpose is to be diverse.
Hitting the cannons might ignite the main reactor.
Toxic feminism.
And follow my orders.
Absurdly powerful female characters. The deconstruction of characters considered patriarchal by the modern woke establishment. The humiliation of male characters for the perceived elevation of female characters.
Okay, listen.
Subverting the audience's expectations.
A man rushing to save a woman only to discover that he is not needed, she can handle herself and she don't need no man. Women saving men.
I saved you.
Vacuous nostalgia and Easter egg
You
manberries.
ever gonna go?
Cheesy fan service.
Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Strong, diverse female characters who serve no purpose in the plot.
He said you were the lost hope.
Men being put in their place by strong women.
You're demoted.
Fourth wall breaking, cheesy sitcom humor.
They fly now! They fly now!
Action set pieces that make no attempt to be logically consistent with the universe they're set in. Shoddy choreography.
Look at this. Watch his 2 weapons. And now he has 1. Where did his other weapon go? It literally disappeared.
Junky CGI.
The might of the final order will soon be ready.
And Mary Sue as the leading character. Women being better at everything than the men around them.
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
Convenient plot devices. MacGuffins. Anti-capitalist messaging. Lines being inserted into the script in order to reflect the political views of the director.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
And cringy slapstick humor at the expense of a white male character.
Supremely.
All of this tropey garbage takes the viewers out of the Star Wars universe and into the world of divisive identity and gender politics of the 2010s.
What is thy bidding, my master?
A few days ago, I penned an irritated tweet in response to one of the latest happenings on the increasingly heated culture war front. I've essentially been banned from Twitter.
In the future, these movies will be seen as Hollywood woke-era crap, not as real Star Wars movies. If Disney replaced Kathleen Kennedy with someone who isn't a political ideologue and just wants to tell a good story and fucking leave Star Wars out of the culture war and just let it be Star Wars, there is no reason episodes 7, 8, and 9 can't be redone and done properly and in a manner that is faithful to and respectful of the Star Wars universe, canon, and characters. Reason number 9, there was no reunion of the 3 main characters. I think this was probably the worst symptom of the subvert the audience's expectations fad that gripped movie and TV culture in the wake of Game of Thrones. They didn't want to show the 3 original main characters on screen because that would be too obvious. They also didn't want the emotional centerpiece of the movie to be the reunion of the original cast because that would take the focus off the new, more diverse heroes who were the priority. But it was a fucking terrible decision and one of the most criminally incompetent decisions in movie history. And now Carrie Fisher's dead and the chance is gone forever. The first priority of episode 7 should have been to have the original cast reunited on screen, but far too much emphasis was put on building a new core of original characters that would take the saga forward in the future. This was basically theft on the part of Lucasfilm. They advertised a reunion that never took place. Just give the people who paid good money to see your movie what they came for. Accept that the 3 original characters are the commercial driving force of the movies and give them plenty to do and plenty of time, instead of relegating them to minor roles in their own saga. You know what happens when you become too preoccupied with your future goals and desires? You forget that you have a job to do in the present, and that job gets neglected. That's exactly what happened here. Disney got high on dreams of creating their own Luke Skywalker, their own immortal on-screen heroes, and completely forgot that they already had 3 of them, acquired from George Lucas, and all they had to do was use them properly. Instead, they abused and deconstructed those heroes in the misguided belief that it would make their own heroes look good in comparison. What they ended up with was 3 of the most valuable characters in cinema history utterly squandered, and a new cast of third-rate imitations that no one gives a shit about. Mistakes have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are permanent. In this case, the decision not to reunite the original cast was a mistake that can never be undone. But if a new post-retcon trilogy was done right, the original characters could at least be reunited. Reason number 10, the DST movies don't make any sense. The plot holes, logical contradictions, absurdities, plot contrivances, scripted conveniences, and illogical character decisions all combined to make a trilogy that by the end completely imploded in on itself. In order for episode 10 to be a cohesive continuation of the Disney saga, it would have to explain, deal with, or go along with the logical fallacies that spawned in the trilogies. Here's just a fraction of the nonsensical dreck from the Disney movies. Why would the First Order build Starkiller Base when the first 2 Death Stars were destroyed in their first battle? Surely military thinking would now assert that such weapons are not viable. How is Starkiller Base able to consume a star so quickly? The Sun's mass is 333,000 times greater than that of the Earth's. Starkiller Base has to consume a star that is literally hundreds of thousands of times its own mass, yet it manages this apparently modest feat in a matter of only minutes. Why is it necessary to consume a star to destroy a planet? That's not how Death Stars work. Why does Starkiller Base need to destroy several planets simultaneously? Does the First Order think that a Death Star capable of destroying only one planet would be laughed off as a pansy-ass pea shooter by the systems they are attempting to conquer and rule over, and that only a multi-planet killing Death Star will convince the galaxy of their true power? Anakin could have appeared to Luke as a Force ghost and told him where the Sith Wayfinder was, but he didn't. Palpatine tells Rey he wants her to kill him so he can take possession of her body through a Sith ritual. She does, but he doesn't take control of her body. Chasing the Resistance made no sense. Why did the First Order not jump ahead of them at light speed, then attack them from the front and behind simultaneously? The Holdo maneuver breaks canon. If it works, why would the Empire go to the expense and effort of building a Death Star when they could just smash a large object into a planet at light speed, thus destroying it? Why would you build a large capital ship such as a Star Destroyer when it can easily be taken out by a small craft at light speed? The Rise of Skywalker made a clumsy attempt to describe this maneuver as a 1 in a million chance, but that doesn't work. All the attack requires is to face a target and ram it at light speed. How does the element of chance come into such an attack? Force Ghost Yoda burns the ancient Jedi texts. Do I really need to explain why this is absurd? If Luke wanted to be left in isolation, why did he give R2-D2 the missing pieces of a map which led to him? Rey's parents are junk merchant alcoholics, but then they're not because she's Palpatine's granddaughter. How did the Emperor come back to life? How did Han Solo appear as a Force ghost when he wasn't even a Force user, never mind a Jedi? How did the Emperor manage to hide thousands of fully manned, fully operational Star Destroyers on Exegol? How did he build them without them being noticed? How did he supply the crews with sufficient food, pay, and incentive while they were all just waiting around doing nothing on an abandoned planet? Why would you equip them all with Star Destroyer cannons? If a single ship captain goes rogue, or if a single ship is captured, the Empire would be in existential danger, to say nothing of the civil panic and political fallout that would ensue when word gets out that there are thousands of planet-destroying ships flying around the galaxy. The Force is now basically super magic. Disney's expanded Force features interdimensional telecommunication, the ability to instantly pull large ships from the sky, despite Yoda having to focus like a laser to slowly get an X-Wing out of a swamp and Luke being completely unable to do so. Palpatine has super lightning capable of destroying an entire fleet, Force ghosts can interact with the real world, and Luke is able to project an image of himself across time and space, but for some reason dies afterward. Kylo Ren is able to use the Force to revive Rey, so the Force can revive people now. That plot hole is bigger than the one that the Death Star left in Alderaan. This basically breaks Star Wars. The Resistance did not actually win the war. The fleet destroyed at the end of The Rise of Skywalker was a completely different thing. The First Order is still very powerful and still almost entirely intact, in sharp contrast to the Resistance, which has been almost entirely destroyed. And there's plenty more where that came from. How can any writer or director be expected to make a coherent sequel to that steaming slag heap of nonsensical garbage? Far better for Disney to just admit that they fucked up, make a clean sweep of things, and start over.
There, that's better.
Reason 11. A retcon would allow Disney to undo some of the damage they have done. To say that Disney have lost the goodwill of the Star Wars fandom would be a bit like saying that the Empire lost the goodwill of the people of Alderaan. Disney's toxic combination of malice, incompetence, iconoclasm, bafflingly poor decision-making, laziness, and ham-fisted political activism poisoned and ultimately killed Star Wars. It is not an exaggeration to say that Kathleen Kennedy completely destroyed the Star Wars saga. Disney should have fired her after The Last Jedi, but didn't. They should not have renewed her contract, But they did. They have chosen content creation and political messaging over quality entertainment and being faithful to the fans and to the Star Wars universe. They have made themselves the enemy of all true Star Wars fans. If, by some miracle, a major change took place within the hierarchy of Lucasfilm and Disney replaced Kathleen Kennedy with a genuine talent when her contract expires in 2025, retconned her shit movies, and started over, some of the goodwill of the fans would be restored. Though realistically, Disney will never have anything like the fan support they had in 2015, just prior to the release of The Force Awakens. A retcon also gives Lucasfilm the opportunity to repair some of the damage that has been inflicted on the Star Wars brand over the past 7 years. Reason 12, Disney could remilk a dead cow. Let's face facts, if Disney did go ahead with a retcon, it would be a financially motivated decision, not an artistic decision or an attempt to make up for the terrible sin that the sequels were. A redo of episodes 7, 8, and 9 would allow them to remilk the Han, Luke, and Leia characters and to rake in box office from a new trilogy that could actually get audiences excited. And most importantly, they could revive the Queen Goose that lays the big golden eggs, the Star Wars saga itself. But will Disney actually do a retcon? It is true that they have invested a huge amount of time, prestige, and money into the cinematic disaster piece that they call the sequels. And Disney are also aware that retconning them would be a Stalingrad for woke culture. But money? Disney don't know how to make a good movie anymore, but they know money. Their revenue in 2021 was almost $68 billion. And for all their activism, money comes first to these people. And they know that the DST does not have the characters, the story, or the fan interest to get asses in seats. Disney are evil, and I really mean that. This is an organization that collaborated with the same authorities that imprisoned Chinese Uyghurs in slave labor concentration camps. Okay? Disney are evil, but they're not dumb, and it would be naive of us to believe that they are. It's true that Disney is full of true believers.
Our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. And so
But would any of those activist villains give up their annual bonus and potentially their jobs just so that they can continue to pretend that the cinematic corpse that is the DST is still a living, breathing thing? Of course they fucking won't. They won't like it, but they'll have to retcon the DST because money. For all their anti-Western, pro-degeneracy and racist activism, when all is said and done, money is all that really matters to these bastards. Disney can't make any money off the Star Wars saga in its current form, and they know it. And they are going to retcon the sequel trilogy because of it. Thanks for listening, subscribe, and don't forget to remake the like button, then retcon the remake and remake it again.